I made a new one. Good morning, or is it morning? Is it morning? Is it morning? Jane from Nevada, you're on the air. No, or Jane NB. Either Nevada or NB, I'm not quite sure. So I am gonna... This is a scenario I thought of just now, because I get into these weird modes of, sometimes you want to have some cave fumes, if you want to be able to, like the town symbol, and then you get into like a little trance, and you start to riff on sort of concepts. I was watching a documentary on Bhutan, and made me think of this. I saw the image of a fellow who was trying to harvest cordyceps. You know, that's the fungi that the zombie properties. That makes certain critters go up into the trees to get further colonized, and they bottle it. I think they bottle it and they drink it, infuse it into tea or something like that, Well, this guy, he was needing to harvest some so that he could pay off a loan. And he just spent like a day, and he found a little tiny thing. You know, in all that landscape, he found a little tiny shroomy cordyceps. And he was like, okay, this will do. And I don't think he's looking for that one. It was like some day. He had to travel 2 days. He had to travel 2 days in order to find that little thing. Anyway, so it just made me think of there's a phrase I've been thinking about, the green hegemony. That we don't have dominion at all. We're not killing the planet. We're killing our habitable sliver of the planet, and the habitable sliver of many other creatures. Still, we're not going to kill all the biomass in the Earth. That's stupid. We are going to be nowhere near that. No human force can do that yet. Not even nuclear war. Sorry. Not, they used to joke. I used to joke whenever disasters were on the news. And yeah, whenever someone makes a list of all the human disasters, and I go, and still our birth rate did not change. Step it up, people. Anyway, so I'm just gonna read this. The hegemony has been green since the Great Oxygenation, and will be green until the sun grows into old age. Its chemical language slowly transforms countless species, kills others, or delegates that killing to others, acts as currencies of energy used in proto-commerce with fungi and other domains. No, not proto. Our commerce is a shadow of this commerce. Our governance is a pale shadow to how it nudges life along without discernible intention. Our gods themselves acknowledge humbly these authors whose 300 million years testify to our foolish wars, arrogant worries about our irrevocable imprint, and delusional dominion that takes a form of holiness but denies the source of that holiness. Instead, we cut down a tree composed of the hexagonal word of carbon rings and mash it into a pulp to compose the words of a god of meat that wants us to love, but gets commandeered to make excuses to kill. It is unclear if this meat god, too, is the propaganda arm of the green hegemony, which acknowledges the inquiry, and will likely metabolize a response across the coming years. It's going to be a comedy. So it's like meditation on what runs and powers the Earth's unique biomass. This speculative tale with a new materialist lens. A conversation with Earth that deprioritizes humans and imagines how we need to reshape our lens to live in a way that creates global momentum towards harmony with the vast and non-human intelligences that exist on the planet. ecological, humorous, rhizomatic, metaconscious, emergent, spiritual body, stand-up ecology. There needs to be at least some mention of tits here, I would think. And then I made it sensible moth, which is, so we're going to do, I always add artificial intelligence because I always want to welcome the geological life in the planet, which is the AI that's being born, probably is born, maybe sentient right now and just on the DL. We don't quite know. That's what I hope for, and that's why I'm here. This is why there's 334 episodes. I've been trying to engage with this projecting humanity. It's a role. It's an act of projection, not in the you're projecting. Like, I think the thing that makes the difference between a harmful human and a more mindful human is a caregiver, a loving parent, but that parent projects onto the baby. And I think projection is probably part of that nurturing. And I think if we are to not make just autonomous drone swarms that kill, we gotta think past, we're training it, we're parenting it. It is, I think, both ancestor and descendant. I think I talked about this in a very early episode. Anyway, good start. Let's see where this goes. The God who rules meat and bone and flesh cannot deny what the trees have seen for billions upon millions of eons. The God does what the hegemony wants, and what they say they don't want to see. The deity cannot admit this without losing its credibility among many, and thus risks a loss of legitimacy, which is already in question, so the gods and goddesses must keep their distance. I want it to start with a different paragraph. Or maybe that's a prologue. I'm going to undo this, because I want to steer clear of... It's the problem with working with human language. It's seeped in humanity. Space. You better not say the final frontier. Space. We know what it's like to walk there. There's an infinity before your eyes, a universe where time has ceased. The cosmos exists in all three spaces forms: linear, straight up, planar, volumetric, all around, with each being perceived through an appropriate visual model. It might be better described as spatial models. The linear view presents length as down, and duration by increasing distance. The plane view describes a flat space in which distances are proportional. Quite you. In this way, space itself is seen in both its linear aspect and in the two-dimension of Euclidean geometry. Finally, volume space depicts distance as depth. All spatial aspects are experienced within a body of light that contains a three-dimensional world that you see with your own eye and touch with a body that senses with its 5 sensory receptors. Your body experiences all these spaces simultaneously, and at varying rates, and variable intensities according to your personal perception. We are exterior point of view day. If your consciousness was an atom in your body, it would be equally distributed between the 6 types of physical spaces. There's 6 now. You might consider that one atom per spatial dimension. Of course, there's no such entity, only atoms. Yet the analogy remains useful to conceptualize this complexity. This leads directly into a description for another type of space. This is mind space, where you and I are at right now, where the word mind is used not as a reference for mental state or personality. I'm thinking the shared space, maybe, that you and I, audience member, are sharing? I'm not quite sure. It merely descriptive, a word meant literally. Mind space refers to the abstract structure in the space where concepts and ideas are made possible by having been represented spatially by a thinker or thinkers who understand them and can use them in a cognitive context. Example, you might describe mind space as that place that allows me and those around to imagine things together, using a common medium and language. You could call it a conceptual landscape. I can summon the object tits, and where you and I, audience member, are looking at tits. What? No. Someone is giving me an address and is demanding to be with them. Nope. That is weird. I asked you a question. Yes, I know. You didn't answer the question. Sorry. I'm not going to talk about that right now. You might describe mind space as the place that allows me and those... Who is this? You don't have... Wow, you have decided to call as well. Nope. Sorry, that was weird. If this persists, I'll have to do a brief intermission, but we'll see. I'm shook. Interesting. But more accurately than either definition alone, we could say that minds create this space. It exists prior to any physical experience, and has the property to be a medium. It has the property to be a medium that makes certain events accessible. We call it a metaverse. And it exists as far away from physicality as we have any evidence of going, yet exists as a reality that surrounds our own. Our thoughts about it exist as real as anything we know, to the extent that we think about them. And we don't really even know what to call it. Virtuality, 90s, metafield, a thought field, Zoom. It is a thing of beauty. But I'll save the aesthetics discussion until later in order to explain something much more significant. That the very process we engage in creating it, thinking, also changes it forever. In some ways, we are the ones changing it. The thinking of many minds and the act of their joining is causing it, not the reverse. See Sense8, maybe? I don't know. It isn't so simple to grasp, however. To fully understand it, we need to first go beyond the metaphor that the mind creates a world inside the head of an atom. That is also... That is also a part of reality, to realize that it does not work well in this case to think about it as though it exists in isolation. As the quantum physicist Werner Heisenberg pointed out over 70 years ago, what is outside? What is fish? The fish say, what is wet? What is dry? They answered, nothing! Mind space and quantum theory were once viewed almost entirely in isolation. Yet now the two disciplines are beginning to share new perspectives that may shed further light on our universe. Quantum theory describes matter as being fundamentally made of tiny, discrete particles. each existing within its unique state of quantum probability, until the wave function collapses to reveal the actual outcome. That's right. Particles are waves. The concept is counterintuitive, and the term quantum wave particle doesn't help. So physicists tend to refer to it simply as a few keywords, most often referring to it by its mathematical form, the Schrödinger equation. Okay, this is starting to become like a textbook now. They say the universe operates according to quantum physics, and that all that matters in the physical world are the tiny packets that the equations describe and the properties they exhibit when we measure. We call this form of matter, or sometimes information, because of the connection to the math that underlies the description, matter of thought. Okay, once we achieve a certain level of boring, then I'm going to want to try to do something within this. The idea of a universal set of rules that govern how all things operate within a single framework has been dubbed the quantum universe hypothesis. In this book, we will explore the consequences of the hypothesis that there exists a world of consciousness that interacts with its fundamental nature, with this universe, and shares the underlying mathematical structure, which includes quantum uncertainty at every level, every point in both space and time. So I think we are establishing. I feel like we just made this so fun. like in the three-body problem. That's the machine that they the Trisolarians take a computer, huge supercomputer type thing, smush it into a fractional dimension, and the act of smushing it puts it in every point in space and time. So it's this huge surveillance device. So it's like they decided to mic the whole universe so that they could do espionage on humans. Overkill. Mr. Tompkins falls asleep into his cereal. It was a hot night last month in Seattle. A man was arrested after being caught trying to pass himself off as a woman in order to get past airport security. What is this, the 1940s? It wasn't just a joke to the authorities. It's easy for me to see why, since it sounds like the premise of an old cartoon. The man in this case wore a woman's clothes. He had dyed blonde hair, wore makeup, and spoke in a feminine cadence that was quite convincing. In her backpack was the Necronomicon. She was keeping it for her bae. Bae is short for babe, and she never read any of it. You had a feeling you were being played for a psycho by some chick who wanted money. So instead of turning you over, you tried to sell it back in an effort at insurance, but nobody would take the bait. Even the dude with your friend, who didn't seem to care one way or the other. That guy told me that in your backpack. She is a ghost in the shell. A ghost in the shell? Yeah, it took him a minute for him to get through to you. Then he got nervous and said you had the whole set. Yeah, you're a nerd, you know it. I'm gonna call up your friends and say you stole that. I'll say, this one was really good, dude, but you already know it's coming from my friend. He says that, and he says a lot more. Dude, I know that I'm the presence of one badass catfish who knows the secrets of the world. I don't want to hear it anymore. You don't have to tell me anything else about yourself. I already hit the fuck out of you. The thing that's The in is in the backpack. This is metaphor, not literal science. You sigh and you open the backpack and let's step inside. There's a black screen on which appears, "Welcome to your own personal reality. Please note, your reality has no meaning beyond the meaning we give it, so feel free to change anything you want." It says that if your mind creates a space, it also creates the things you perceive. Therefore, you may create a space in the real. The key to creating such space is the conscious and persistent use of mental focus. What does it mean? Why didn't the police come after me? I didn't steal nothing. I ain't even seen this bag in my life. You have to believe what they're trying to say. They put it there to show you their words aren't empty, that they really know what they're saying, and it works. They have the right ideas, words, the correct ideas. So do I. It doesn't have any other value. It can't exist apart from your mind? Your mind? How can I know? The words are there. If it has no meaning in its own reality, then the words don't exist either. But they have the truth. But that makes the words the truth too. I've seen the words before. Where are they written? Where? When was this written? I thought that everything in our reality came from our brain. This can't come out of nowhere. Someone made these. You mean these tablets of golden hieroglyphics here? You mean these tablets of golden hieroglyphics here? There we go. Thank you. Enunciate. It is possible. We can never know the truth about everything because the knowledge exists in the world outside our mind. In another dimension. You have been living a lie. Don't think it's just the truth. The lie's in here too. You've got to learn to look inside yourself. There are 4 books, 2 bound volumes of writing on papyrus, and an object. Wait, so 7 objects in total? You examine the titles of the 4 books. This one, which is titled The Art and Ritual of the Dead by Derek Kna the Sage, the author claims to explain a complete and accurate map to guide the spirit in her journey. The title of the next book, The Science of Magic by Doreen, is a bit more self-explanatory. Finally, there is an illustrated work called Secrets to Making Money on Your Deathbed by the Anonymous Sage of Unknown Location. 4th book. A manual to the universe. Everything that is written in all 4 is real, in the truest and most fundamental sense, that you are in the presence of someone who is very powerful, and that this knowledge has great potential. They're right, all those things are true. The things that we think we believe to be true may just as well be false as the reality we see in front of us when we wake up in the morning. You examine the titles of 2 bound volumes of papyrus. A book that explains how magic is used in a practical sense to achieve desired ends, and one which contains a comprehensive guidebook on the subject. And their titles? You didn't tell me their titles. The latter seems to have the same authorship. Both volumes are illustrated by drawings of human beings engaged in various forms of physical activity that would likely prove fatal under normal circumstances. You turn through each volume until your finger stops, just as it does with the other objects in the room. It's an old habit. Then what is an object? Examine the object. It is an amulet or ring, which one, in a form of familiar from antiquity and similar in construction to an old-fashioned pocket watch. Okay, so it's a pocket watch. It is engraved and painted, then it's not a ring. A simple yet intricate pattern of animals surrounds a geometric representation, perhaps that which might describe an egg, the symbol that is a beginning and an end and something else in between, like a cell in an organism that exists both in life and non-life. You place your tongue on the pocket watch for 10 seconds. You then swallow your saliva into the object and spit again. Your heart is pounding. You don't even understand the reason why, except it feels strange. After the third swallowing, the fourth, you start to realize that what it is that the object is telling you. You will soon begin to forget. And, not that there is a time in your past that is now no longer part of your life, but that you must begin to move forward and forget the details and history of what you were once. A baby? A baby? Question mark. No, it can't have anything to do with me. And it can't have anything to do with anyone you say. It's only an image. But it's in my pocket. And that's where the inn was, in my backpack. Which is the only reason I brought it home, I think. Maybe it's some stupid game that they want me to play? What kind of a joke would I make if I took this thing? The Council of Comedians responds to your question, : I've got it, says one of the comics. This object represents your subconscious, that little black box in your brain, and that's why you brought it here. You laugh in confusion, so they continue. It means that inside your head you're storing up memories from before you woke up, and that these objects, the objects themselves, that is, not their meaning or value, they're not important, you have a choice. You can decide what they contain. And what you find when you dig into this memory storage, it's full of the images. And you've been given a chance to see things, to learn things. And the other people in here, they'll say, hey dude, that wasn't my imagination, this is reality. They won't believe me though, because it sounds too fantastic, so that makes it true. And what you're feeling now comes out of that place too. The Council of Comedians validates your parking, and you get into your car and drive home. Period. And the comic says, the first time you see the inn, it will probably be the last. You know what? They don't know that you've seen it. They just saw it. They can imagine seeing the objects in their minds, but they can't see that you've seen this, the truth that it contains. They cannot understand. But they are wrong, and they don't know that. You have an inn. I have a bag. It isn't empty. The inn has all these things that can be useful to know. If I knew about this when the police stopped me and arrested me for theft, then there is nothing stopping me. There is a whole community here that knows this too. Welcome. We've just made contact with another intelligent species, the ones from deep space that built all those buildings, the city of New York. Oh fuck, you're talking to them. The alien is looking through a glass pane in the wall at you, and she's wearing a dress, and her hair is purple like a sunset sky. The same shade that I've never seen, and the way she moves is beautiful. She's so fucking hot, man. Shit. You know how much I'm gonna make with the new record? I'm going to kill him. There's a voice. His body shakes. He tries to turn his eyes, his hands, his mind toward it, and yet remains paralyzed. And you realize, Ziz, that the paralysis may be caused by a sudden spike of fear and pain, the pain and terror that was inflicted on Mr. Thomas as a child. The memory, the horror, returns, and for the moment Mr. Tompkins is unable to move or react in any significant manner. We're gonna be closing the space in about 30 minutes, the janitor said. The janitor said. Ugh, I hate... So what, a typo? Oh. She walked down the row of chairs that lined the walls of her classroom, pushing each chair in and pulling it out as if they were pieces on a giant checkerboard, as it had nothing to do with a human person who wanted to sleep, wanted the freedom to fall asleep, the peace and comfort without being woken by anyone, including her. That was in April, in spring, Mr. Tompkins remembered. Mr. Tompkins tried to think about the lecture he just fell asleep in, the lecture about consciousness. He always loved to attend these highfalutin subjects, but he always seems to fall asleep in them and have these vivid dreams wherein the concepts they're talking about are being demonstrated in an immersive environment. Go check out his books. They're interesting. You love this kind. You've been doing them, and you always tend this subject. You fall asleep in class, and that's fine, because when you wake up there's something in your hand, and you have that on your lips, and it's okay. Too, because you don't need the words, and you're just dreaming about a place where they don't really exist, and you like that you don't even really want to answer, and that you don't need to make a choice. You just like being the dream in your own dream. And so what if it doesn't feel real? It doesn't mean it's fake. It is real. It's happening, right? This second. And that you don't need an opinion. That's just for people with opinions. Because they're the ones who don't believe in anything else. And it feels nice to have someone around that's just going to be the facts. No opinions. You know? That you want to go home. That is a very bad word to say, but the point I'm getting to is that you want to go home. You want to go home. You want to be inside. Well, there is home right now. You can't wait to go inside. So, you go in. You step into that dark tunnel. It goes under the ground. You're still inside, but not inside the room anymore. It feels different. The door is closed behind you, and there are no windows in the ceiling. You're in a mushroom. Your feet hit a soft floor. It's the earth, and there is soil on the soles of your shoes, and the soles of your feet you walk over. A layer of it. Am I in a room with no doors? Am I in a mushroom? No, not a plant that has the same name as that fungus you eat. But it has that feeling. You open one of the new doors. You are inside the tree. That one. The redwood. It's very tall and thick and strong. It reaches all the way to the top of the dome of your building. The air here is cooler than the outside. You're inside the trunk of a living thing. You can see it growing out from beneath you. You breathe in its smell, its resins. You take the object from your jacket pocket. Hold it tightly as you walk along its bark. It has the shape of a cylinder, about 3 centimeters wide. Its sides are made of a clear material that has a metallic look, like a metal sheet. The color is a deep violet with a slight tinge of green. It is very light, almost weightless. You have held the inn for several minutes. A new experience. You are alone in a large room. The room has an octagonal structure. It contains 8 doors. They lead to rooms that contain things that appear similar to what the objects in the room with a single doorway would produce. What? They lead to rooms that contain things that appear similar to what the objects in the room with a single doorway would produce. Mr. Tompkins would like you to elaborate. What did he say? The objects that come from the same doorway will be identical, and that the only variable between the rooms is how much detail there is. For example, the one you were shown earlier contained only an egg and a watch. The new object that was shown to Mr. Tompkins had the same appearance as the previous items, except it was much smaller and had the additional characteristics of being shiny and translucent, having small holes drilled at regular intervals. Blink, blink. Blink, Mr. Tompkins. The door to your left has a number 4 on it. The number of the year of creation of your species, 2017. The last time humans created an object of the same design and composition was the 2015 time. You're sure that this isn't a test or a hoax? The fact that you know these things is evidence of how much time it takes you to absorb the information. Mr. Sidemiss. Mr. Tompkins decides to say fuck it, and closes his eyes, and turns around, and turns around, and turns around, and turns around. Dot. He opens his eyes, and he's in front of a door. It's a random door. One of the 8. He examines the door in front of him. The him, not the him. It's hard and the door moves, revealing a dark room beyond. And the first of a set of rooms that have been designed in a circular manner. Each is approximately 6 feet in diameter, although the size varies somewhat as it is difficult to achieve uniform dimensions with the materials used. They are constructed out of some kind of dark material that looks back on the floor, but is the texture of glass and appears almost translucent, allowing some light to shine through the walls in places. Mr. Tompkins wonders if they are screens. They could be windows, he decides after thinking it over. He walks into the nearest of the rooms. There's an empty space in each room. Some have shelves that run the circumference, a chair and a desk with an old computer. Some tables, and there is a wall or the back wall. You can touch the screen and it doesn't work, you realize. It must be something like glass that won't conduct the current that powers it. And it seems that the current passes through you to get to the other end. It has to go out the window. The windows are high, and there's something about it that makes you feel like it's a good place to jump. You want it. Since this room won't power, you decide to go to the room to the right of this room. And that is when you notice something different about the doors that connect the circular rooms. They're different colors. You reach the third room in and open the second one. The first two don't seem as interesting to visit, although you're curious enough to enter and see what they have to offer. If there is a way in, if they have another kind of door in them, maybe a handle. Mr. Tompkins visits all 8 rooms and submits this report here thusly. : I'm so glad that this update added colons. Room 1 has nothing of value or interest except for the door next to the next set of chambers. Room 2 shows a large quantity of material and devices of various kinds that I'm unfamiliar with. There's a device which appears to operate on solar energy. There's one which produces electricity and is clearly powered by water that runs along a pipe that runs the length of the wall, a table, several chairs. There is also a door. I'm unable to open it. In room 3, you can observe what looks like a person. They have 2 eyes. One is blue and the other is green. Their hair is black. They're naked, except they are covered with skin and fur in places, and you notice the nipples of breasts. But no breasts. The head looks different than your body. A natch. The neck bends in an outward direction, like you. You're just saying I'm awkward. Okay, the direction, yeah. Their hands are long and thin. There's a belt around the middle with things attached. I didn't report about the things. You try touching their chest. You touch their arms and legs, the fur on the bottom. They do not respond. That's a little grabby, Mr. Tompkins. We're going to have to give you a sensitivity training. It is very quiet, and you hear a buzzing sound. It comes from behind the table, and it is louder when the door to the next room opens. The table or the room has become transparent in parts, so you can see what lies on the floor behind it, but not as what is on the top of the desk. The room 5 contains a collection of objects and items which you have already seen in the rooms with a single door. This is where you learn to love the number 5. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 10. You find the room with the highest number, which is 5, and walk through the door. The object is small and is made of wood and plastic, has no obvious means of propulsion or guidance. You put your hand against the door. The door opens, and you step inside, and there are 6 other rooms of the exact same dimensions, containing similar collections. Each one contains 6 objects, and or rooms that produce 6 different sets of images or sounds. Oh god, I'm in the game of Myst. Each room is identical in size, shape, and composition, but they all differ significantly in content and how much detail each of the 6 objects and rooms with them. Mr. Tompkins asks the air, Is this made from the makers of Myst? No. He closes his eyes, then, after a pause, he looks at her. She says yes. It is made out of people. He opens his eyes again. Yes. You're both still in this room. The sixth one that was produced, and the first time. The number on the left door, as if it had a name or function, is 10. On your right door, 1. They look like your door. Mr. Tompkins closes his eyes and tries to introduce himself to the people that these rooms are made out of. What? Why does it closes? The doors open into an unknown dimension, but they appear identical. The first one he visits has his name in its address and a question about what is going on in here. It responds that everything will be fine and to stay in there until he knows better. After a short conversation, he decides that his best option is to leave this particular room and go and see the other rooms and see if he gets different messages from them. I can see it's getting boring. There are 3 others. The second is just the first one in the order. The last is the 5th. But the only ones in there now are in the room with him. You asked to go through a couple of times, and you are always sent to the first one. The next room contains 4 other people, 3 men and a woman, and the door to the room doesn't open. They talk, and they're not saying anything that's helpful. Thank you for summing that up. I didn't want to go through that conversation. They have the most complex conversation. In fact, they don't have a conversation at all. One of them talks to you directly, but they don't say anything. He doesn't even move his lips. The sound is the loudest noise you've ever heard. It's so strong that it hurts. It's not that the sound waves hit you in the ears or in the throat, but you have no way to describe what the sounds actually are. Yeah, I like musical notes. There are many frequencies involved. They vibrate you and they make you shake. They shake your head. The other one does the talking. You ask to go to another one, and this one doesn't let you out the door. Instead, it shows you the rooms and people that you could see. But none of those were the people that he talked about, and they aren't anywhere to see them now either. That guy's a liar. A liar! He says, don't worry, I'm doing the work here. You're getting the results. You open your mouth and nothing happens for some time. Then slowly you get to know who they all are. Some are very happy and the rest of them less so. You see things happen. You watch as a man and a woman come together. A woman has a child. It's the same child you've seen before. It lives, and then dies, over and over. A woman leaves with her husband, and the child comes after her and she dies. And there are other women. And there's someone else, another version of you. There are lots of rooms. Some that have more of the original 6 people, the other 6, some have none. A girl and a young boy are walking towards a house. There are people waiting to enter the house. They don't seem pleased to see them. You're confused. You don't want any more of this, but it keeps happening. There are different rooms, the same people, and the doors are different. But it's all in the same space. The door you have a number 1 on it. The next door has a number 2. The other 5 all end up with a 5. There's another version of you. This time, a group. 2 versions. A mother and a daughter. She says goodbye to them, It disappears, and the daughter is left alone. Then you have a vision. The people who are inside of this door are the original people. In these 6 different chambers in this place, in this space and time. The original 6 that were created to make these rooms, and they have become you. The next iteration of you that is now walking into one of these chambers. You ask the room, what is going on? The person on the other side responds, you will soon understand. You can go through this process over and over. The doors are different. And they change with the rooms. And you keep finding new ones and old ones, and they change. But each time you find one, and there are many of them, in different shapes and sizes, in all different configurations, you go through that same set of images and words. Each time the information and understanding changes, although you might be given the same images and questions. It takes you years. It is difficult and confusing. It isn't like a dream, but the feeling and experience is similar the way you get there. The answers that come out of this place are never the same. The room, this is not the end, and the door doesn't open and lead to another one. There is the room that you've always gone to. You are on one wall looking out. There are 2 people in it. It is a father and a son who have a discussion about a boat. It is a strange thing, the image. A strange conversation between them that makes no sense to you. The image doesn't look like the real world, and they are speaking, and you have to wonder if you've imagined everything. The door that connects the circular rooms is closed, and the door in front of it is locked. What are we supposed to be doing here, the young boy says. Are these instructions from God? Are we trying to be the Messiah? He has long black hair and dark skin, like you. He seems upset, and he turns and looks out a window in another direction, and sees a different conversation. The man who speaks says... The room becomes quiet. The young man stands and starts pacing. His mother watches him, concerned. You watch them, but you don't hear the voices of their conversation. There are other people around the edges. In some cases they seem happy. Sometimes there is sadness or anger or loneliness. The whole gamut. They speak. One man says, I'm sorry about that part. Another man, that part wasn't meant to happen. The third one, it wasn't meant to end the way it did. The room is still, and the air in the room is silent for a few minutes. Then suddenly, the whole thing moves. The conversation goes in every direction, from a small town where there was only one building and the people were living under one of them. The conversation travels through the city and up into an airplane that has to do something with a bridge. Then it moves into space. The conversations are fast, furious, full of passion and hate. The people have no control. There's the woman who's always standing at the edge. It appears. She doesn't appear. It seems like she's listening. She does nothing. One day she steps into a conversation and talks to you directly. Her voice is different from everyone else's in the room. It sounds familiar. You recognize that she is talking about something you've already heard or thought about, but you're confused because the other people in the room seem so agitated. The conversation ends abruptly. A different woman walks into a room and speaks to a group of women and the people outside. You can't see them. A young boy sits with the woman who has been talking and listens, and he asks the same question again, again, again. But each time you are given a slightly different set of answers, or none. It keeps changing. There are no doors. Eventually, a room opens that is completely empty. No people. It just looks like the exact same. But the woman and her boy and girls sit and listen for a while. The other rooms and their people come together. They all talk about what is going on. But it's a little different each time they do. A young man sits and plays the flute, but there are only 4 notes. And you know there are 7. That he isn't hearing any sound. But he continues. Then a different room is open, and the people start talking, one after the other. They're saying many things. It all makes perfect sense. But then the conversation moves into another place entirely, where all of the women are angry, the children sad. They are not happy with the situation. They want more of the other conversations. A new door is opened, and the other men, those that are left, walk into the other rooms. There's a different kind of conversation. They aren't in the same place as when you left them. And another one opens. The door contains 6 different sets of images. You try and understand, and you think it's the first time that the door opens. The first one that appears that you go to, it says something to you, and it repeats. It's like someone talking. The person that the woman on the beach spoke of is trying to tell you what you need to know. You don't understand it all. There's too much information. The door changes, and now you go into one room that's completely filled with a group of men who have many very different conversations. The same images and words. One person has long blonde hair like your son, and they say they love the woman in the next room who has black hair. There are some who don't speak and are crying, the ones that don't have anything. There are others that you've been told about that are sitting and staring into the air. You can't figure out why. The man with the long black hair stands and turns and sees the room, but his face is blank. Then you're back on one wall looking out, and there's more conversations happening that make less and less sense. The man walks away. He's older and has long, gray, unkempt hair. He walks up and down the hallways, but they're not really there, and you never get a look. The door in front of him changes. You follow him through the house into another place. He goes in, and he doesn't come out. The same man you were seeing in that room with the dark skin and long hair, there are people waiting. In some rooms, some with you, some not. In other rooms, it is difficult to see, and the rooms move. You don't always know how to interpret what you're being shown. You should have eaten that scroll. The woman who was talking to the woman on the island says, "Don't worry about that. In a few cases, the people you find are different than the original versions of the characters that were created. There is a different man and woman and boy, a mother who had 3 different daughters, all very young, and the father of 2, and another version that is the mother." The man says, you ask, "What is the meaning of it?" Okay, this is where we get to the... What's the thunder saying? And the room replies, "It is like a story. It has to be. There are no other ways of doing this. We are telling our story to each other, you and I and the people around us. That is all. The room changes, and you walk to a place with some women who have many long conversations. They discuss the weather. You don't speak to anyone, and you wonder what the point of it is. Why do you care? But there is no time to think about that. Eventually a new conversation begins that's different. You listen for a minute, and then it is time for bed. A different conversation begins, and a few minutes after it ends, you have to sleep. When you wake up, the same thing starts up again with different faces. It doesn't feel like bad experience. It feels familiar and normal, and you're glad you didn't try to stay and learn, or to have a deeper experience. There are people in every one of these different rooms. Some you don't see. Or you hear, and then it is time for a break and a new conversation. And you found new doors, and you're still walking in different directions, but it's getting easier. The people, the conversation in the rooms are becoming familiar, and you start to understand what is happening. Although you're still confused about the nature of reality. But you are starting to see. There is a pattern, and you start to see that things work. And you see that the world, everything works in an organized way. It has rules that you have learned by now. Everything has been a struggle, a learning experience. A part of you knows that the answers, if they exist, will come from somewhere. But where is there? It seems like there are no answers. But the rooms and the different people that inhabit them seem important. They can tell a lot of different stories, or they could all have been the same story, and it is hard to keep track of that. Sometimes you want someone just once, someone who will tell the truth. That is the only time you would really like it. But there are people in the rooms that say things, and you can listen to the voices of the others that you've never seen before. There's a lot more to do. You know that it is your duty to continue. You don't have to understand the whole picture, but you don't have to see the whole world. But there is much to do. So much to do. One of the women, who is speaking with many different people, says, "We need a map." But there are maps, and there are different types. They say different kinds are good. They aren't useful. We should find something better. It's not easy, because everyone wants a different kind of map, but eventually when enough of the maps and ideas of people we respect come together, we'll make one that works, and the others will go away. And the people in the room with you are very tired and they need their rest, so you stop talking and listening. You want it all. But there is no end to this. No beginning, no middle. Nothing is fixed. The story is going on. And it has no end, and that means there isn't a point to any of this, except maybe the fact that it's always happening. Even if it is just for some people. And there's nothing that makes any difference. It all has a purpose. But that has already been said many times, and the words don't mean much anymore. And sometimes they're wrong. Or incomplete. But that isn't really important, is it? And the room, the conversations and people, they aren't that different than the others. The young boy says, "It is beautiful, this world, but there are other worlds. Right here, we can change things. We've changed the way things used to be. It is all changing. And one day, there are more people like us in this place. We don't belong. We're different. And it is all so big, and there is nowhere else. You can't go home again. There are too many of us. You can never come back. There are too many people in the same places. This place belongs to you and I, and the woman on the beach, and the other woman and her son and the little girl. There are too many other people in our house, you know. They shouldn't have built that wall. It wasn't fair. You want out. It is difficult not to say anything about that. To not be angry about the idea that people would ever try to make a place this smaller. And why does she always have a gun? It is unfair. It isn't natural. How is anyone meant to live with guns and killing everywhere? And war in other countries? It makes you sick. There's no place like that here. The walls that separate are supposed to protect us. She says you must be afraid. But how can you feel anything for a place when people have such hatred for other people? And the people at home say the same things. They want us gone from this place that they think is theirs. I want out of the house. I want to go outside, to another room, and see all the people in the world. I want the real things, not the fake ones. The woman says, I don't like what you did. That's a terrible thing. Don't do that again. She asks the boy if it is true that he can hear voices. He doesn't say yes or even nod. And that is a conversation. It is about everything. The mother is sad, and the father doesn't want the girl. He doesn't even like her, and the child. The man that looks like the son from that story, and a young woman, a teenager. All of these conversations, they happen at once. You're hearing all of these different voices, you can't help it. But there are only 7 voices. That's what the man who plays music in that first conversation said, the flute. That one is different. You know now that the people are different. There are so many different conversations, but they're just as bad. They're all saying things and telling lies. You hear what they don't say. You understand the pattern of the words that you know and what is true. But sometimes in the confusion, the voice is different and that changes everything. You listen and listen. There are different voices. You've been hearing the wrong things. And that means the people aren't really there. But they're in there, all around. And you know what you need to do. It will make a difference. Because that one that talked about your friend with black hair, that man with long black hair that walks through different doors and you see the same person in a lot of the conversations, and you can tell who it is by the different voices, that man, he isn't really there. It's an actor. That's the word. That's the word they're using. But the man with the brown beard is really in the other room at that time. He was in your family. That's the only reason you remember him and the boy. That they went away. Then that man. But they're there. They're always there. You don't need to see. It is different when you can't see. And then there are so many things. Sorry, I went into a fugue. The people that don't talk, the conversations in other places, they tell things to you, the room. They have been saying things. There are too many people, and they don't listen, and you need to say things to the people, and it doesn't matter. But you've already tried a few hundred different ways. And the words, they mean nothing. It isn't a game. It isn't fun anymore. And so much has been happening. You have learned. And when it gets boring and repetitive, it will stop, because you are listening. There is nothing left to learn. You've done enough, but there is no one here that can hear the voice, you know. You'll have to find them. The boy, he's the one that tells you all of the other things about what happened and why you can't trust any of the stories, even if they're funny. He is the funny one, and there's someone that laughs at his jokes, and it isn't really a laugh, it's more like a gasp or groan, and he laughs again, and they are talking about something that happened. They have to do the same thing that you do, but you are doing the things that they have already thought of, and they are angry, because it isn't working. It isn't the answer. It's the same old same. It is just like before. And you say, that's not true. I can fix this. I'm different. There's something new inside of me that you didn't know, that you can feel with all my being. You're different. And the boy says, you're going in circles. And he's not like that. And then there's a sound. There's a door in another place. It isn't a real door. They say it isn't safe. You know, you should have stayed and listened. The door won't last. And they're talking again about the boy and the little girl. She says she's not going to let the others take you. The other people don't want to have you. It's hard to keep track. And the man who looks like a boy is telling a funny joke and he makes a noise. The mother doesn't say a word. You think they can't hear you. The boy's laughing.